All right, hi, we're here with Aaron Nanto, the creator of PCEngineFX.com, probably my favorite 90s and early 2000s website. And Aaron, welcome to the Retro Game Club podcast. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, no worries. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm always excited to talk about PC Engine and everything related. So yeah.
So could you give a quick introduction to what PCEngineFX was at the time?
Yeah, sure. So from I guess we can start from the very beginning of my interest, because first off, so of course I was a young kid back then, and I walked into my local Fred Meyer store, and they have an electronics section, and it was going to be like my first game console that I was going to buy. And so on the shelf they had the Master System with a TV showing Alex Kidd, and then right beside it they had a TurboGrafx showing Keith Courage. Mm-hmm. And I probably stood there for like an hour. Just let my parents were just like shopping. I was just like staring at both, and I'm like, which one am I going to buy? I have no idea. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to choose the TurboGrafx for no particular reason. And I bought my first HuCard game, Alien Crush.
Nice, good choice.
Because that was the only thing that I could afford. I couldn't buy the system yet. So it's like, I'll buy Alien Crush as like my guarantee that I'm going to follow up and purchase a TurboGrafx. And so I had that for 2 weeks, and then I bought my TurboGrafx and basically just fell in love with it. Just like totally went in with the whole thing, and I was also really super interested in technology. So we had a computer, and early computer, and as soon as I could, I started learning how to like program HTML for like web pages and stuff when that was a thing. And then decided, I want to like start sharing my passion for the TurboGrafx, and so I made my own web page. I think it was just literally called like Aaron Nanto's web page.
Good name.
Back in the day. and then when I could actually like start making graphics with early versions of Photoshop, got more powerful software that I could actually create these really more beautiful web pages using drag and drop methods. And so that's when I converted it into PCEngineFX, and I only put FX at the end of it because I was like hearing of like some distant console that was going to be called like the FX or PCFX, right? So that was way before FX was released, but I was like, okay, I'm probably gonna cover everything NEC, at this point, right? So I just started off with some like American information about it, kind of like my interest or like some reviews. Made a forum, that really grew about it. And this was back when, it was all like new, all this was new, right? So
yeah, late 90s, right?
Yeah. So there weren't many sites out there. Another site that also sprang up was Dark City Productions, I believe. I'm not sure if you remember that one. But that was a friend of mine who we frequently collaborated on information because he was also like a turbo freak at the time. And so basically it grew and grew, and then the PCFX came out, right? Mm-hmm. That was like, oh my God, this is like a new console, and it's Japanese, and I saw that as like an opportunity to like provide information about that to like American audiences, because back then, there's nothing you could do to translate, Japanese unless you knew Japanese. So I was like, okay, I really want to like spread the word of this new console, even though it ended up to really be a flop for NEC. I was really passionate about it and really wanted to get that information out. So I made the PCFX World site off of PCEngineFX. And that just turned out to be it. I mean, it's a whole big thing by itself. I have, back here, I have like, stacks of PC Engine fan magazines, which they're all Japanese. And I didn't know Japanese. I still don't know Japanese. And trying to like translate the titles and figure out what the title is for each one. I have sticky notes all over my magazines to like cross-reference this. Oh, okay, this game is this game, and this is what this name is, and this is the release date. And so I had all that stuff up on the site, even though I didn't know a lick of Japanese, and just trying to do all that. So it was really just a passion for all that stuff.
Like you said, I mean, there weren't many big sites back then, and
Yeah.
PCEngineFX was like the one site, and I had everything, like you said, and it was the only place that I heard about PCFX. I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for that. And Hugh,
Yeah.
And Hugh, you pointed out when we first talked about doing this interview, all the video and stuff that Aaron, and the radio, wasn't there like PCFX radio or PCEngineFX radio? Yeah. It was really proto podcasting before podcasting, like a decade before podcasting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It just kind of got me thinking about how like we had stores in Chicago that sold import games. We had like Die Hard Game Fan, stuff like that sold import games. But PCFX was just, I had not even heard of it probably till your site, because even the import game stores didn't carry it.
Yeah. I think I only I heard about it from the PC Engine fan magazines that I was importing, and then just like figuring out what is this thing, and then some American magazines, like Next Gen, I think it was, or like Next magazine, I think. They had, some of them had little specials on it, but then that was pretty much about it, right? But yeah, it was just like trying to grab information from any source I could. And then I imported my games from New York, from a place called NCS, I believe. And they originally had Japanese anime that I imported. And then they started carrying imports for games. So I imported a lot of like PC Engine stuff, like Dracula X, right? Like those kind of PC Engine games. And then all my FX games I imported from them too. So and then eventually I managed to get the entire library. So that was really great.
That just woke up a brain cell, or before we started recording, Aaron and I were talking about how the heck we know each other, and it's still kind of fuzzy. But I think somehow you got me the PlayStation 1 Ranma 1/2 game from Japan. Something like that. I forget. When you mentioned anime, Ranma 1/2 popped in my head, and I think somehow you got me something with that. But anyway, I keep picturing all this happening all the way in North Pole, Alaska, which sounds like a made-up city to anyone that doesn't live there. But how was the retro scene back then? And that is northern Alaska, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much it's pretty much as far north as pretty much you can get with the regular like paved road. The paved road pretty much ends right there in the middle of Alaska, in Fairbanks, and then North Pole is like 7 miles south of that. So yeah, that's where I used to live. That's where I pretty much discovered Japanese anime for the first time, which I imported a fan sub of an anime that I like found on some BBS or something, right? I mean, it was it was totally not like a legit thing, but that was my first exposure to like anime first, and then I got into heavily into J-pop music because I loved the music in anime. And then I started importing some games, right? So it's just kind of like led to one thing to another, right? And importing VHS tapes and like all these things, and just loving the whole Japanese culture. And I started like drawing characters, like I was totally fully into it as a kid. But it was also kind of like shocking too, right? Because I was like, used to Saturday morning cartoons like the Smurfs,
Yeah.
like watching, or like Care Bears, and then all of a sudden we get like Ranma 1/2, which has like full on nudity in it, and I was watching it with my mom as well, and luckily she was cool. She was cool with that, and yeah, so yeah, that
Was
was
there a scene there at all, or was it just kind of you? Like a video game.
yeah,
I mean, I want to say
it was.
retro, but at that time it wasn't retro. You know what I mean? I guess it'd be import scene.
Yeah, it was. I would say it was. It was super early, so like I wouldn't really say there was much. There was much of a scene. There was a little comic shop in the Fairbanks, just where next where I lived, that they had a stock of maybe like 20 or 30 like anime VHS tapes, but nothing gaming related, right? It was all just USA stuff, right? So I think back then, if there was any kind of scene, it was really just kind of like the import anime scene was starting up at that time. So nothing really gaming related, and it was also kind of hard to network with other people that because it was also early internet, right? It was like BBS. BBS days where you had to call in to a local BBS, and it was just all, yeah. There wasn't much of a. It was a lot harder than it is nowadays to kind of like connect with people that like that. But yeah.
Then you have weirdos like me calling you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hugh. What were you gonna say?
Well, no, I was just saying, and just I mean, culturally, it was just such a different time. Even in Chicago, there weren't really a lot of stores that sold import. I mentioned import game store. There was like one. There weren't a lot of stores that even in a major city that sold that. And now, I went up to Mall of America a couple of weekends ago, and I think there's 3 anime shops in Mall of America now. To give you an idea, like how mainstream the culture is now. So it's interesting. I was thinking, when you're talking about some of your late 90s stories, I think really the golden age to get into TurboGrafx collecting was roughly like 1994 to 1999, before eBay was invented. Did you, when you got into TurboGrafx and collecting, were there any kind of like amazing deals or just crazy finds you had?
So I kind of was in a unique situation because of the PCEngineFX site. I got access to things that probably like a normal person wouldn't have been able to get access to.
Oh, I need details on that. That sounds awesome.
And yeah, so like one of them, which is I have like 2 or 3 binders from the TurboGrafx like help customer support people, some of their original like help binders, where people could call in like a helpline, and then they could
Was
get
that
like game
TTI
counselors
at the time or before TTI?
Yeah.
Okay, it was
Yeah,
TTI.
yeah, it was pretty much around that TTI time, where they could call in and they could say like, "Help! I'm stuck on this boss on this game. Can you help me?" And they were like a game counselor helping you through it, right? And they would just like talk you through that. So I have actually a few of those with all like the notes and everything that the counselors wrote and everything they printed out. It's really, really cool. And in one of those, I've actually posted this online before on socials, but there is a memo from the head of TTI at the time, and saying that they had complaints about R-Type. And R-Type in the US, when it was released, it had tons and tons of sprite flicker when you played it. And apparently customer support was getting a tons of calls and or returns saying that the game was defective because of all the sprite flicker and everything. And so the USA branch TTI contacted Japan and talked to NEC of Japan about it, and then Japan faxed back over their response, and I have both of those faxes, and basically explaining how like the game was programmed from like the arcade, and it's an amazing port of the arcade. And because it's a port of the arcade, you know, there can be some things in the game they may not expect, like this flickering, and it's not a bug. This is like an expected problem, you know, with an arcade port of this nature, and that people should be, you know, happy to even have this port.
I mean, they're not wrong. If you look at games like Rygar and stuff like that, like sprite flicker is part of the gameplay. Like people should have been used to that by then, you know.
For me, I never thought that sprite flicker was a bug back in the day, right? I never thought like, oh, I need to get my money back because this thing is flickering, right? I just kind of like, I didn't even think anything of it really. It was just part of the game, right? Like if you get two sprites overlaying each other, sometimes you're gonna get this like flickering effect, and it's like, oh, okay, whatever, you know. But apparently that was a major customer support issue for TTI. So,
do you have any of that stuff scanned in that you might like throw on archive.org or something?
Yeah, I have I have posted the faxes about that on there, and but yeah, I can totally post it up again. And then another, probably the holy grail item that I've ever gotten is a unopened, never before seen in retail copy of Magical Chase.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Wow.
So the story behind that was that later on in the life of TTI, basically the last few years, they contacted me saying that, hey, Aaron, we'd like you to maybe redesign our website. And I was like, yeah, of course, you know, I'll do it. So I actually mocked up I mocked up a new front page. I mocked up new product pages. I actually got like all of the accessories that they had from TTI. They just sent everything to me to take new product shots. I still have like all the original Photoshop files for that, you know, that I did. So I still have all that stuff archived. But then like I was working on that, and then the owner was like, I got some bad news. We're going to close up shop. Right. So this is basically the end of TTI, and we're just going to handle repair work per contracts, because you have to offer repair work for a certain amount of time after you sell a product. That I think it's like 7 years or something like that. So while their storefront was going to close down, they would still offer repairs. And so he was like, okay, well, as like a thank you, you know, I'm going to send you like a thank you box of goodies. So I was like, okay, cool. And I got it, opened it up, and there it was, like this unopened Magical Chase.
That's incredible.
It just came out from the warehouse, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap. Like,
wow.
Like, now, unfortunately, I did sell it.
Oh no.
Yeah, I had a time in my life where I was like, I want to sell off my TurboGrafx stuff. I know I'm stupid, and I auctioned off like all the big games. I had like Bonk 3 CD, you know, Magical Chase, all these games unopened, pristine, you know.
Oh no.
So yeah, I got rid of Magical Chase. I sold it on eBay to a guy in Florida. So if you're listening, guy in Florida, I hope you still have that unopened.
I mean, one of the first things I told Hugh on your old podcast, Hugh, is that, I sold on eBay my first, no, it wasn't. I traded my Turbo Duo with like 7 games because it was old and I didn't want old things anymore, for a new PlayStation with Rayman.
Nice. That's not a good trade. But, you know, on that note, like, I mean, I do software development now, but in the 90s, I ran a game store. I was a electronics boutique manager, and like I was there when one day we just got, you know, it was weird. Price changes came in through like the cash register. It was a really weird system where you come in the morning and like the cash register would have this list of games you're supposed to mark down that day. And I was there the day that like every single TurboGrafx game got knocked down to $4.99. Like all the CD ones. I mean, I got a few of them sitting right here next to me, right? That I picked up for $4.99. But really, I should have just bought all of them and put them in a warehouse for a couple of years because, I'm not going to get rid of every copy because I do actually play these. But yeah, I guess if you knew at the time what that stuff would be worth in the future.
I know. There was the one I probably regret the most. Well, besides Magical Chase, is that I really love Sega as well, and I love the Sega Saturn, and the Saturn that's like its own story. But I got a Saturn when it launched. It was like a surprise launch, right? And I actually drove down from Seattle to LA to a place that had it, because when it launched, it was only available in California at the time, because no one knew it was launching. It wasn't being distributed to anybody, even though they said at E3 it's launching today, but then it's only in like LA.
It was in Chicago too. We got it.
Oh, it was? Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's lucky.
We got like three of them. It wasn't a lot, but we got it. Yeah.
So I drove down there, got it, and I loved the Saturn, and I had, oh my God, like probably 40 games, and even like the last game as well, and all the rare titles, and I sold that off on eBay at one time, and that was my biggest regret there.
Yeah, I annoy my wife because because of that Turbo Duo sale, and I sold a bunch of music stuff back then, and my mom sold my old NES stuff. I don't sell anything now. Even, if I have multiples of games, I can't. It hurt too bad the first time, and I bought most of it back. But
right.
I want to share a link in. Don't worry, this is nothing bad. I want to share a link in chat here. This is from archive.org. It's some screenshots of Ys Online, and so people probably don't remember that. On PCEngineFX.com had screenshots of an up-and-coming like Ys Online game. And Aaron, can you tell me? I legit don't know anything about it other than remembering and Googling for these photos today. How did this come up to be, and how far did it get, and anything else you can remember about it?
Yeah, that was pretty much the like extent of how it got. I vaguely remember this. There's at the time there were like kind of like these multiple like homebrew projects going on that I listed on the site, and pretty much almost all of them didn't actually become anything. But yeah, the idea there was basically just to make like this 3D-esque, kind of game, like Ys game. And I think if you look at the second screenshot, there's like this like grassy plain, and it's kind of going away from you on this in this like isometric kind of view. And yeah, it can, it was playable, but yeah, it was just so early on.
It was actually playable.
Yeah, you could like walk around, and it had like MIDI. I believe it had like this guy who actually he wrote like the entire soundtrack for it already. So he had a bunch of MIDI music that he created for it. But yeah, that one pretty much didn't go anywhere. And
I remember being so hyped for that at the time.
Yeah, and then it looks like I made a little teaser trailer for it as well. So that was kind of like my there's like a couple of videos on there where I hyped it up a little bit. But yeah, like you said before, like I was really into like the video creation scene with that, and making little trailers, and the PCEngineFX TV.
What you did looked pro.
2.
I mean, I don't want to say it looked pro. It was pro. It really was. Other than the real video compression on it, which was not your fault.
That's funny because like I used Real Video back in the day. I also worked for Real Video as well at one time, so that might have had something to do with it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So PC EngineFX got you a job or two for sure.
Yeah, and of course I was using Photoshop, and then I used like Premiere Pro for the video editing, and I wanted to make like a TV show, right? So that's how PCEngineFX TV came about, and each one of those had like, you know, game reviews or just like game overviews on there, and maybe like some funny thing or just some news and information. So just expanding on from going to a website to like online, especially when like YouTube first started out, right? So
Oh yeah, it was definitely again like yeah, proto YouTube or to like proto whatever came out before YouTube, and you used NetObjects Fusion, which other than you, I feel like I was the only other person that used it, and it was because I loved the look of your site. And thinking back, that program had very advanced JavaScript for the not even for the time, even for today. It was making responsive stuff back then when you know the internet was so young.
yeah, like the way that I actually designed my websites is that I actually created the entire layout in Photoshop, and then I started cutting out like each section. And then I would use NetObjects to basically like drag and drop all those things together to try to recreate it from what I made in Photoshop, right? So basically, like the last big remake, I love to remake the site too. So I probably had like 30 iterations of like PCEngineFX over the decades, and I just love to like remake it. So I always had a new look and feel. But yeah, like I was really pushing NetObjects what it could do, because like a lot of times things just wouldn't line up. Even if things wouldn't line up by like 1 or 2 pixels, I'd be like, okay, I got to figure out what's going on there. And then how it views in different browsers, right? You have to see how it viewed. And back then, various browsers didn't really display the same way. So
Yeah, everything was in a Chrome fork back then. Yeah.
yeah, so that was a huge pain, and I was really a stickler for that. So.
And what was I going to say? And then from then you became a tester for Microsoft. I was going to ask you, like, you know, growing up, everyone saw, you know, the NES videos where you call the 800 number to, I guess, be a 900 number to, you know, talk to people that, you know, help you in video games and stuff, and think like, oh, I'd love to be a game tester. And you followed that dream. What is a day in a life of a game tester, hardware or software?
Yeah, so I mean, if you really want to get into it, like that's a really great way to kind of like get your foot in the door. It's a pretty easy way to get your foot in the door, actually, if you want to get into like the gaming industry. There's people that have, you know, gone and actually, you know, gone to game studios to like, you know, to like develop games, and they had their starts in game testing, right? So, and that happens today. I mean, it's not just a thing, you know, back in the past. It happens even today. So, so yeah, like pretty much like getting into game testing. I did a little bit of that back during the like Game Boy Advance like era. 16-bit, 32-bit era there, and basically like you play, you know, you're helping find bugs specifically in like levels that are assigned to you, right? So let's say you're assigned level 1 of this game, you got to replay it over and over and over like a billion times, so that you know like every nook and cranny or any way that you can maybe break the game, right? So on one hand, you know, it's like, oh, cool, I get to get paid to play games. But then on the other hand, I have to play this one level for like a year, right?
Yeah.
So you know, it's you know, it can be good, it can be tedious, but it's definitely fun, and so like from there, I think I got my name on a couple of games. One of them I think was like the Powerpuff Girls on the Game Boy Advance. It was like a side-scrolling shooter. So that was pretty interesting. And then from there, I moved on to like working at Xbox as an engineer. Started out in at the beginning of the Xbox 360 development cycle, which was a couple years before it came out. So that's pretty much how I got into actually working with development tools and helping developers make the games for the Xbox, the original Xbox. And then from there, I kind of like moved on to just working with other Xbox hardware and accessories and like the controller itself, the headsets as well, all of our headsets and remotes. So any kind of accessories, I work on the firmware and the hardware on those. So yeah, it's been a really cool road to kind of like still be in this industry and be part of it and actually see people like use these products from
absolutely,
day to day.
yeah. Wait, when you said you were in the Xbox before it was released, did it feel like, was the mood there or the feeling like it was the Dreamcast 2? And I mean that in a positive way. Or was that not mentioned at all? Or
I think there was always that like, there were a few things. One of them is like Sega and Microsoft gonna work together, or is someone gonna buy each other? Like all the stuff throughout the years, or are they gonna team up somehow and make a new console? And I wish something more came out of that, especially because like Dreamcast, right? They had Windows CE on there, right? So that was kind of like the first step, right? Microsoft was working with Sega, and they provided Windows CE on Dreamcast so that they could make develop some games that way. I think Sega Rally, was a Sega CE game. There were some other ones, but it's like, oh, this is a great little partnership, and I think Windows CE was even on the Dreamcast, the logo, I think, right?
yeah.
So yeah, there was like all this really cool kind of like talk or like buzz about that partnership, but yeah, I mean, we all know like what happened to Sega, right? They pretty much ran out of money and they couldn't afford to keep on the Dreamcast momentum, even though it was growing, and they had to go software only, and Xbox has like its own like story about how they created the original Xbox, but yeah, it's just really great now that I just appreciate that Sega's still around. First off,
me too. Yeah,
and that they're actually doing so good now that they finally announced going back to kind of like their roots and like, hey, we're making a remake of like Jet Set Radio and like Crazy Taxi and Golden Axe, right? And like all these things, right, that we've always wanted, just haven't got.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like now they're financially, able to do this now, which is really great.
Unlike Nintendo, when people make hacks of their ROMs, they hire them, they don't sue them. We get stuff like Sonic Mania,
I know, right?
Well, yeah, and they put their music on like streaming services and stuff. You can just go on and listen to their game soundtracks, and Nintendo will. I assume they'll try and sue you if you try and listen to a game soundtrack of theirs. I haven't tested this theory out yet. Sega's pretty open about it.
Yeah. One of the things, one of my favorite games is actually Daytona USA, and because like when I was living in Alaska, North Pole, we had like maybe like one arcade at the movie theater, and they had some games, but they never had like the latest stuff, right? And they didn't have any of like the really cool like AM2 or arcade machines there. They didn't have Virtua Fighter up there. It wasn't until like I finally flew down with my family to Disneyland and I saw like Ridge Racer for the first time in the arcade and Virtua Fighter and Daytona USA, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, and that's how I fell in love with like Sega all of their AM2 stuff, all their Model 2. Model 2 is probably like my most favorite of all time. So, which I'm glad they have some of those games on Xbox. Actually, they brought out some of those on 360, so I can still play those. But yeah, that's pretty much one of my favorite games.
Well, speaking of games, this is a game club, and each week we each pick a game to play and kind of review the next episode. Do you have a suggestion for next game club game?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned you guys were playing a lot of the Hue cards already, right? So I was thinking about a Super CD, and there's there's so many good games. I was like, should I like torture you guys and give you like a crappy one?
Camp California, something like that. Yeah.
Right. Like,
keep in mind, I sort of I don't know why, but I've always liked FMV games. So you can't torture
me too.
With an FMV game because
yeah,
I unironically enjoy all of them.
yeah, me too. I love the FMV games. I love Sewer Shark. On Sega CD, and like I love all those. I was gonna say like Night Creatures. Should I torture you guys with that? But I'm not gonna be that mean. Or Shadow of the Beast. So I actually would love to pick Lords of Thunder.
Nice. Making a note right now.
I have it right here on my TurboGrafx shelf too.
Yeah,
got it for $4.99 on clear.
That's awesome.
One of the $4.99.
Yeah,
games.
it is. Yeah,
you can get games cheaper now with what is it, PCEworks, but that feels like cheating. It's not the same.
Yeah, I got a couple of their boxes. I don't know how much I want to comment on.
Yeah,
on those.
I thought I found it. Yeah, I thought I found a deal on a Bonk 3, and I was like, oh my God, this is like the deal of a century. And it came in the mail and I was like, oh, I didn't realize this was a thing. So, yeah.
Oh, and they didn't tell you?
No, I
beforehand.
didn't know about PCEworks at that time. And so it was on eBay and I was like, oh, I'm going to jump on this. I'm going to buy this right now. And it was a bad purchase. Not that I have strong feelings against PCEworks, but I thought I was getting an original.
Right.
I didn't do my research. All right. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything you're working on you want to mention?
That's a great question. Not really. I don't really, not really producing anything right now at the moment. I do have a YouTube channel, the PCEngineFX site, but I'm not really uploading anything right now for it. I do have some of my old stuff on there, like PCEngineFX TV on there. I still have all of my old videos and stuff. I really love the devotional kind of like tribute videos that I made of the consoles back in the day. I still love like the PCFX one that I made. That was a pretty epic one to make. And then I have a couple for the TurboGrafx and also one for Neo Geo. Those are just my classic kind of PCEngineFX productions on there. But yeah, if anyone has not seen those before, just look up PCEngineFX on YouTube and
we'll put it in the show notes too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Thanks so much for spending the time to interview with us, and I'm glad this happened. I know we've been emailing for years, so it's great to.
I know.
Quarter of a century in the making.
I know, totally. I'll have more stories too. Maybe I'll come on again and I'll bring more stories.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.